Hello and welcome to TRT World, live from Istanbul. I'm Tatiana Anderson. Also ahead on the program.
No Africa policy outlined by the Trump administration. When he took office, he said America first. So observers really didn't objectively expect for him to put Africa first. But one of the main purposes of President Trump's trip is to get a look at prototypes for his controversial new border wall.
A new CBS News poll shows that 57% of Americans are now in favor of stricter gun laws.
And is there any significance to the fact that President Trump really took his decision about the YPG just in the days before Erdogan came to visit him in Washington? Does that mean anything? July 15th has now been declared a public holiday. What are we expecting to hear from these politicians?
Well, black people here at the convention are clearly enthusiastic about their candidate and their party. A national poll shows they're the minority.
The UK's Theresa May just arrived, and we're also just learning that May has bilateral meetings set with all of the leaders of the G7 except for President Donald Trump.
We heard from the mothers of black Americans who were killed by gun violence or by police this week at the Democratic National Convention. How important is it to highlight these issues when it comes to the modern day civil rights struggle?
It is very, very important.
Blowing snow means poor visibility and the potential for power outages, and this storm system is once again having its effect on the World Series. Officials announced that Game 5 will not resume in Philadelphia until tomorrow night, weather permitting, of course. Brian?
Hard to believe we're talking about 60-mile-an-hour winds along the Jersey Shore tonight. Tatiana Anderson in Utica, New York, thank you for that report.
McDonald's is ordering up 50,000 employees. Candidates lined up at stores from Miami to Chicago, filling out applications to become everything from crew member to manager. And in a tough job market, many see the Golden Arches as a golden opportunity. Diashe Timberlake has been out of work since January.
I would like cashier, but I'm open for anything.
This isn't the first time McDonald's has hired so many workers. Last April, the company also added 50,000 employees, but those hires took place over the course of a month, not in one day.
This is about galvanizing our 2,600 franchisees nationwide, aligning and working with them and hiring for our restaurants today and our business for the future.
The Merriam-Webster dictionary defines McJob as an unstimulating, low-paid job with few prospects. But the head of McDonald's U.S. operations, who worked her way up from the bottom, says today's jobs have more potential.
In McDonald's, there's career opportunities, and we have a huge impact on the economy.
The owner of this Midtown Manhattan franchise started out as a crew member 15 years ago.
You know, you can work for McDonald's for a year, you can work for a whole career. The choice is up to the individual person.
But many people will take any job they can get for a steady paycheck.
Anything, actually. Cashier, stock, anything that I need to do.
Job seekers will find out if they are hired by the end of the week. In New York, Tatiana Anderson for CBS News. Protesters are on the streets just behind me. They're actually hurling bottles of water in our direction. This is the third day of protests here in downtown Charlotte, North Carolina, following that shooting death of Keith Lamont Scott. This is something that the presidential candidates are weighing in about. Hillary Clinton reaching out to the city's mayor and Donald Trump reaching out to the state's governor. This is the message that people have here on the streets. They are very intent on getting that across. All of this happening, though, as state officials are working to get to the bottom of what happened. At the center of the investigation into the death of Keith Scott, the question of whether or not he was carrying a gun at the time and if he pointed it at police. Family members are demanding that police release the video from the incident that's already been studied by investigators.
Ultimately, what I think the whole community here wants is the truth.
Scott's family says he was carrying a book when he was shot, not a gun. They say he posed no threat. Charlotte Police Chief Kerr Putney says the family is being allowed to watch the video, but he says he has no intention of releasing it to the general public.
Conflicting stories of the fatal shooting have led to consecutive nights of rioting in Charlotte, forcing North Carolina Governor Pat McCrory to declare a state of emergency in the state's largest city.
The National Guard has been mobilized.
National Guardsmen and highway patrol officers are working alongside the Charlotte police force. The governor says they will remain until normalcy is restored. The shooting death is now being investigated by the State Bureau of Investigation, following a request by the Scott family. Investigators are also determining whether charges should be brought against the police officer who fired the fatal shots. For now, the city of nearly 1 million people remains on edge and is the latest to add to a grim statistic of another black man killed by police.
And as for that video, a lawyer for the Scott family says that they had the opportunity to watch 2 of those videos. And after seeing those videos, they have more questions than answers. They say that Scott was calm. They say he was not aggressive. They say that he had his hands by his side and he was slowly walking backwards when he was shot. And you can see that protesters are still here on the street. You mentioned that curfew earlier. We'll have to wait and see if they adhere to it. But right now, Natasha, that's just not happening.